Okay, we kick off. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you had a fantastic lunch and you're not in the middle of the afternoon slump. We'll try and energize you all. So we've a chunky topic to discuss today, people management, how to recruit and assemble the best co-working operations team. So co-working and flex are very much driven by real estate and hospitality, where as much as we embrace technology, it's really the good old-fashioned human interaction and driving those relationships forward that really remain the key aspects of what we can offer our members and the value. So how do we determine the perfect job description in 2023 and beyond? It's quite a loaded topic. So can I just ask those of you who are currently trying to recruit or perhaps have teams within co-working flex spaces to raise your hands? Okay, that's a good start. They're in the right place. Okay, so looking forward to exploring this topic with the panel, and there's an awful lot to unpack here, from those all-important soft people skills, driving community forward and really engaging, right through to decision-making, autonomy and talent attraction and retention. So before we delve into the questions, I'd love to hand over to our fantastic panel. We've got Jamie of Second Homes, Alex of Clockwise, and Ben of Unicorn Spaces. So if you could give us a quick synopsis of who you are and your operator brands.
You want me to kick it off? Good afternoon. Thanks to Coworking Europe for hosting us and having me today. My name is Jamie Apostolou. I'm the COO. Excuse me. I'm the COO of Second Home. We're a community, culture, and design-led co-working space with locations, 4 locations across London, 1 in Lisbon, and a 2-acre campus in Los Angeles, representing about 25,000 square meters of space. Each of our sites have a full-service food and beverage and restaurant offering as well. In terms of my background, I've been relatively industry agnostic. Spent the better part of 20 years working across a few different industries, technology, apparel, hospitality. But the common thread throughout all of that has been building and leading teams to help grow and scale companies. So I'm excited about the conversation today and look forward to chatting with everybody.
Hi, I'm Alex Livesey. I'm the COO of Clockwise. We are an owner-operator who used to be mainly based out of the UK with over 500,000 square feet of space, of 50,000 square meters to talk in the proper numbers, 50,000 square meters of office space and then co-working spaces across the UK and are now in Brussels, The Hague, and going into Antwerp and Bremen. So we're expanding quite a lot across Europe. I'm fairly new to the industry, about 3 years. I've done 25 years hotels, led different chains, anything from really budget to very high-end hotel chains. So that's sort of my background, and way more people to work with there than you have now in co-working spaces. But the focus on hospitality and service excellence is very industry agnostic these days.
Wow, the third COO in the row. I'm Ben. I'm the CEO of Unicorn Workspaces. We are a German-based workspace provider, having 15 spaces in Germany. And we have 3 locations in Lisbon as well. And we have the Lisbon team here. Hey. Which is great. So mingle with them later if you're interested in Lisbon. Yeah, and I'm also quite keen on the discussion that we're going to have because, I mean, getting the right talents and the right people on board is the most important part probably because, after all, hospitality is a people's business and everyday life is about making contacts with our clients and with our users in the spaces and having good conversations there and also having great business opportunities with them, right? So it's really important to have the right people on board, after all.
Fantastic. And my background is very much in relationship management, corporate banking and real estate. And then I've been in the flex industry for just over 11 years now and co-founded our space in Newry, Northern Ireland, just between Dublin and Belfast back in 2012. But aside from that, I'm also a certified coach and mentor. I'm really fascinated in human behavior, helping move people forward, and really honing in on workplace experience and fulfillment. So enjoying this conversation already. So let's delve into these questions. Jamie, what do you think the core functions in terms of your operations team really, the key core functions that you would look to fill within the team?
It's a little bit subjective, just kind of based off of the different types of businesses we all run. For our ops team, I mean, we're very heavy with supporting, embracing, engaging our community. So that hospitality element is critical in how we help our members, how we take their feedback. We do a lot of things that we call creative collisions, where we encourage different members to collaborate with one another. We host things like Founders Breakfast, things like that. So when we think of an ops team, we really think of somebody that, one, can obviously handle all the operational day-to-day and managing a site and managing the facilities and managing all the variety of kind of hardcore operational stuff. But then there is a high-touch member engagement component that we look for at Second Home.
Okay. Alex?
All of our sites run a very lean team, and they are very self-sufficient. So being able to build really strong relationships really fast and build fast rapport with our members is key. And that's one of the key things that we're looking for. And then the resilience in people and the understanding and empathy for each other, those are the sort of core functions, because once they do that, they start doing everything else. So that approach, combined with what's probably quite unusual is for somebody that has a lot of flex offices, is they also control all of the sales functions. So you don't have your regional managers diving in and starting to try to do the sales tour, and they mop, and the ops team mop up the leftovers, and trying to deal with all of the issues afterwards and the misunderstanding. So they control the whole journey. What it means is that becomes their home. So their workplace becomes their second home for them, like yours, no pun intended. But it becomes their home for work, which is also our tagline. But it's really important that that's the same for our members as well as for our employees. So being able to have somebody that can create that and facilitate that through relationship and the environment they're building is really key. That's the sort of core piece. Once you have that, everything else just falls into place.
I can only add to that, actually. In the beginning, when we started Unicorn, we had to have people on board that were like Swiss Army knives, that knew everything, did everything, so did sales, did community work, and everything else. But the further we grew and the larger we got, we had to specialize, of course, and make things easier by automizing a lot, like having a CRM, for example, not only Excel sheets, but automate the sales process and so on. And so we have people now, very specialized people. We have a dedicated sales team, for example, which we didn't have before. And I know a lot of providers have community managers that do the sales job. But with automation and standardization comes also specialization in the teams. So we are currently in a phase where we are looking for really specialized people, coming from a history of having people that can do almost everything. And I'd say in the management team, we all are very versatile in terms of, I've been the CMO, I've been the CSO, and now I am the COO of the company, which tells a lot about what we're doing and how we do it, actually. And at the same time, we try to embrace the people by a really, really good job offer in terms of work-life balance as well.
And on that note, the difference job functions within operations team, do you find that they change or they vary slightly depending on location, member makeup?
Not really, though. I think, well, we are mostly in Germany, and I think apart from the differences between the north and the south, cultural-wise, pretzel-wise, I don't see much of a difference because we set these standards. So we have something called the 3P at Unicorn. It's problems, process, and what's the third P? Projects, which we divide everything else in, and that's a standard process for everything. And so all the problems that come in are standardized via a ticketing system. That's Germany-wide, and also in terms of projects, when we develop ideas, when we go on with like new expansion ideas or whatever. And everything else is, we have an own wiki that's really large, where you find everything, and this is the standard that we're living, actually.
Okay. Alex, Jamie, you both have different locations across the world. Do you find that with different member makeups and requirements, the job functions vary slightly?
It really depends, not necessarily on the geographical location, but the makeup of the community, and it changes. So our location in Belfast is very heavily tech-led, which is a lot of US firms that have come in and setting up their first environment. So we have a lot of people that are the first time in Northern Ireland, that are the first time in that location. So there we're doing a lot of events and creating an environment that really helps you settle. Whereas but we now have a couple of companies that have set up in there that are established and that are locals that are now coming into this location. So now everything changes, and the program changes. So allowing them to be organic around this. And I like your 3 Ps, because it basically means whatever the issue is, you then decide how you're going to deal with it, and you allow an organic process, a natural process to take place within a predefined framework of your standards. The moment you have those two clearly set up in the business and you're rigorous around it, you'll find your bespoke solution.
Yeah. That kind of goes with the whole ebb and flow of the ethos of co-working and Flex, doesn't it? Yeah. The whole organic approach. So go on, Jamie.
Yeah, for us, I mean, our locations are in really different areas. We have, London, Lisbon, and Los Angeles all operate on the face level very differently, because there's different member demands across those three territories. In Los Angeles, as you can imagine, there's a lot of writers and a lot of individual people. There are a good amount of teams, but that's a different kind of service standard that we need to think about. Also, that site's 2 acres. It has 7,000 trees. So there's just a whole other different operational capacity that needs to be taken into account when we think of facilities. Whereas our Lisbon location, it's smaller, it's a lot of expats, it's a lot of digital nomads. So there's a whole other service standard required to service that. So we kind of have to accommodate the different territories. But at the end of the day, we have a pretty standardized process in which we approach. There's good continuity across all of our, what our brand is. There's good continuity across how we approach members, what the expectations are with how we communicate with them. So while the member composition might be different, our approach to the service standards kind of in the operational needs remains pretty consistent.
Okay, and staying with you, Jamie, what do you think the highest priorities in terms of soft skills are moving forward?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'd like to unpack it both in terms of an internal and external piece, thinking about how teams operate with each other as well as how they interact with the member community. The 3 that kind of immediately come to mind that I tend to lean on a lot are just good communication skills. I think it's critical to just be able to communicate with not only your peers, but the members, obviously. Empathy is a big one. I know one of you said empathy is a big part of the ethos. It is for us as well. Especially when it comes to member needs, member feedback, having an empathetic point of view and understanding where the members come from is a big one for us. And then lastly, resourcefulness. We're a pretty people-intensive business. I know that there's a lot of providers that are relatively lean. We have about 100 employees across 6 stores. So being resourceful is really kind of critical from both interaction with each other, but again, with making sure that our members have what they need. And yeah, so those are kind of the 3 that come to mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what to add to that? I think the key thing, what we do is, what I look for is, we have a really well-defined well-being program for our employees. And part of that is similar to yours, is a mental health and mental health first aider program for all of our employees. And the reason we've done that is to really help them develop the soft skills. Number one, for personal resilience, of knowing where their own boundaries are and being able to define them clearly and feel safe, but also to recognize signs and being able to listen with empathy, but also to be able to signpost members into the right direction, not to become the therapist, but just to be able to signpoint them in the right directions. We have a lot of freelancers, and we have a lot of small businesses. Our average size of an office is about 6 desks on average. We have the large ones, we have the small ones, but on average about 5 to 6. And that means those are really small communities. You don't have many people to talk to. You're probably sitting right beside your boss. So being able to reach out to somebody else and have a chat becomes really important in these sort of ecosystems. So as a soft skill, building that out as a skill set and then building upon that has become really important.
Yeah, I agree to all of that, basically. To be honest, probably one thing that we face as a challenge in Germany, at least, is we can't actually really hire the people that we want because there's a shortage, especially in the service field. We basically take whoever is there and then try to train them also because there's this large shortage of people. And as a customer at Unicorn, you want to feel like a regular in a bar a bit, like coming to we have barista coffees or cafes in all of our spaces, so we have really a community thing where there is a cafe area and it's flat rate, so people just come there to meet, to talk, and they want to feel like you're a regular in a bar, right? The barista, he or she knows who you are, he knows your trades and your coffee style and so on and so on. And finding those people is really hard in a market where there is no one, actually. I have the feeling during the pandemic, everybody left. I don't know where people went, but the service sector is dried out. It seems like 50 million people just died and we didn't even notice. It's really hard to get those people on board, to be honest. But once they're there, we try to train them. We try to. You talked about psychiatrists or psychology. Actually, we have installed a program called Open Up, which is another service. We didn't invent it, but people can actually book as often as they want a psychological consultant hour there, whenever they want. And we installed that during the pandemic as well, because people were mentally stressed. And they needed something to, get their problems rid of, somehow. And that's why we installed that, for example. And then we have a bike program where people just can have a bike from like a job bike. It's called Jobrad. And then we also give public transport for everyone. So they need to feel welcome at the space, at the job, and they need to like to go to the job, right? And this is a tough nut, actually.
Yeah, that whole workplace experience. So just on that, you're struggling to recruit people. So where are you finding them from? Are they coming from further afield?
Well, we try to find people, especially when we talk about the service sector. We try to acquire people from the hotel business and the restaurant business, because restaurants are also having huge troubles in Germany right now. There's a tax increase coming up in January, so we're going to have a shortage in restaurants again, or we hope that that's a bad mouth. We will see that there are more people on the market probably that we can hire then from the restaurant and the hotel area. This is mostly the people that work best with us because they know the field of hospitality, actually.
Alex, how are you finding things?
It's a mixed bag. In the UK, where the brand is really well known, we've been quite heavily represented on social media through activities from our teams. I always say, with caution, if you start following Clockwise, with a caution, because your LinkedIn profile will just get inundated with all of the events everyone does. I've unleashed a bit of a monster there, but a good one. A lot of things are happening. But people see our values and our culture. So the amount of the moment we advertise a role in the UK, I see a lot of applicants coming through that are either already in the industry or in hospitality or other industries that are really intrigued and interested by our well-being program and our values and want to be part of that. It is harder in new countries. Opening in a new country, in a new location where your brand isn't known is really hard, because you have to put so much more work into it. You're asking somebody to trust you as an employer, to leave a safe employment, to come over and work with you on something new. That's really a challenge.
And Jamie, how are you finding things? And in the main, do you hire people more local, or are there quite a few from further afield in your spaces?
Yeah, again, with us, it's really contingent on the location. For example, our Lisbon location, almost all of that team is from Portugal or Brazil, and I think that's been critical. I think, to Alex's point about going into a new country is incredibly challenging, especially one that is not of the same language where you were founded or where your other doors are. So for us, that was a big deal. I think also just to make sure that you're kind of hitting the local cultural components right. But then there's all the tactical stuff. Having to be able to speak the language to get service providers in, or there's a lot of practical and tactical pieces that having a local community does pay dividends on. But I think finding talent is probably one of the hardest things everybody in this room will encounter at some point with recruiting. Is this, I always say that the people side of it can be the hardest point, is to get the best people in the room to operate something that you're pouring your heart into day after day, to get somebody with that same level of passion and attitude and aptitude. That's a natural challenge that I think any of us would encounter. But we spend a great deal of time on recruiting when we do recruit, especially for senior positions. We tend to put them through a pretty arduous recruiting process, meet several members of the team. So again, it's attitude, aptitude for us, and really looking at, like, can you do the job, but also do you have the right kind of attitude composition to not only fit on the team, but service the members and make sure that experience kind of checks the boxes of the brand. And that's been our ethos. We're 10 years old next month. That's been kind of the same strategy we followed for this last decade.
Just a quick question that's sprung to mind is, do you think the more service industries that Co-working Flex naturally partner with will give more opportunity for talent recruitment?
I guess if I'm following, are you saying, like, is it?
So when people now partner with the hotel industry.
Sure.
There's different services that we're.
Yeah, I think there's definitely there's certainly some transferable skills from those types of industries, especially hospitality industries. There's also similar metrics. We all look at occupancy. We're looking at kind of a rate. I mean, there are some commonalities. I'm not, but this is also personal because I've come from several different industries and kind of gone in and worked with teams. My strategy typically is to get people that have some industry expertise in the space because I need it. I need it to operate at my best capacity because I'm dependent upon the team to help inform me to make good decisions. So I tend to look at people with experience in the space. It's not always like a necessity, but it's certainly something that adds benefit, right? Especially like as we're going to expand in another country, having experience in that country. You don't necessarily need to be from there, but having experience there is a big plus. And the same can be said with coming from another co-working provider or coming from a hotel or something where there is a common denominator certainly helps.
Okay. Alex, do you think there is a correlation between the departure of key team members like community management and the retention of your member community?
It's a process that certainly needs to be managed very carefully. I think a lot of times I've seen business owners or leaders getting really upset when somebody hands in their notice. It's like it's a personal insult that somebody has decided they're going to leave our employment. And I'll see it totally opposite, because that's, for me, just a break. The amount of times people have gone off and done something else, grown and furthered in their career, and then joined us again later on. So how, as an employer, you manage that offboarding process of your employee as thoughtfully and carefully as you do with the members that are leaving you is really integral. Because up to the last and afterwards, you know, that employee or the next employee should be still an ambassador of your business. And you should always part in good and graceful ways with each other. So I think that becomes really important, which is what we've discussed before. It all boils down to, we all spend so much money on marketing and our brand, and what's our brand, and what's the color of it, and what does it say. I don't think we spend enough time, or a lot of businesses don't spend enough time, what is my employer brand? Who am I as an employer before they join us, whilst they're with us, when they're leaving us, or when they might even want to come back? So I think that's really sort of where it comes down to, managing that process, because then the members will understand as well, it's just part of life, that they're going on to something new and exciting, and you don't see that sort of churn of membership then.
I have nothing to add, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
I promise myself not to say anything if I don't have to say anything clever, you know, that's fine.
It is. We'll move on then. Jamie, did you have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up earlier was values. And Alex, you had mentioned it. Ben, you had mentioned some as well. I think that's going to be the real testament to be an attractive tool to retain really high caliber talent. We can all compete on wage and compensation and bonus and commission, and we could all compete on that all day. But I think having a value-led organization and being a part of something bigger is truly becoming more and more important today, especially with young teams. So I think that's really the only additive from my side.
I have something to add. Because I mean, this is about sharing learnings of the past, right? A bit also, and in a time where it's really where we invest a lot of money, a lot of energy into keeping people happy. There's the other side of hiring someone and then seeing it doesn't really work out well. And you should not hesitate, if your gut feelings are bad, to really make a quick decision also there, because it's just not going to work out. Even in a time where it's hard to hire people, especially specialized people, but still it's better to just go away or let them go instead of just dragging them along sometimes. This is a big learning
point
from the last 10 years working in that field, actually.
Okay. And staying on that theme, what about personal development plans and career progression? How do you work that within your teams?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, at Unicorn, we try to encourage the people. So there is a plan for everybody to, just learn new things and have courses and internal trainings that we have as well. But one thing that we've seen in the past that works really well is changing departments, so people from the operational field going into the sales field, and people from sales going into the HR department. And this is a really, really good thing for the company because people just know the company even better from other sides. And making that possible for employees just to change departments is something that works so well for us, and that's a use case at Unicorn, actually.
Brilliant. Okay, Alex, what's your experience?
Yeah, coming from the hotel industry, you literally, I think there's not a role that hadn't done. Started as kitchen porter and literally done every single role that you can imagine in the hotel infrastructure. So we're doing a similar system, so you can do secondments even for a couple of weeks. And I love everyone that tells me they want to go into HR and training, because I stick them for 2 weeks with the HR team and they're cured. 9 out of 10 are cured because they actually realize it is a tough job and they're realizing what's really involved in it, and they're like, oh my God, don't really want to do all this. Or I'll send them into the marketing team and then they're starting to have to analyze our SEO campaign and what's involved in there and how much math is involved in the marketing. And they're like, oh my God. But actually having the opportunity to do this, for them to really understand how do they want their career to progress, but the safety of their role is really important, and it really encourages everyone to perform well, because within your personal development plan, you have to hit certain hurdles of performance in your current role to be able to step into these secondments. So it works both ways.
And just quickly touching on sales and management,
Yeah.
do you have specific teams for that, or is that part and parcel of each individual role?
Oh, I think all of my general managers of the building will tell you they're the kings and queens of the castle. That's their place, that's their home for work. So they'll manage the whole process, from the first inquiry being an email or just a form, all the way through to doing the deal, to doing the move-in, to the offboarding when the client leaves because they've grown so much they need their own 5,000 square meters and what have you not. They manage the whole process themselves, which means also they're fully accountable for their site and their site's P&L. And they really love the fact that they have the entrepreneurial freedom to do that within the framework of our standards and our brand.
Okay.
In terms of mobility, I always encourage it. I mean, we have several instances where people have moved across departments or grown. I always encourage that. I mean, I'm a big believer that we have a whole life outside of where we spend our day. And so I like to encourage people to think about doing different things, learning new skills. If there isn't that opportunity internally, we'll invest in training 10 out of 10 days. You know, it's a mutually beneficial investment for all of us. And I really liked what Alex said about offboarding. I think that that's a really terrific point. But kind of back to the, you know, it rolls into that these, you know, employees are ambassadors, and they could be that for life if all goes well. Things don't always go well. I mean, that's the reality. But yeah, we're all for mobility training and employee retention at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Last question. What are your thoughts on part-time working and remote working within the flex industry? Ben?
You mean for our employees, right?
Yeah.
We encourage it where possible, but we also want to take our, for example, sales team in account for things that are happening in our spaces. So we have a dedicated sales team. Our community managed that we call community baristas aren't really doing sales. They're not part of the sales process because they should focus on hospitality in our spaces. And obviously we want the sales team to be there for tours. So when a potential client comes, we want them to be there. It's not really doable all the time. So that they can stay home all day, for example. They need to do tours as well. But for example, the marketing team is working from home mostly. We have something that we developed after the pandemic, basically, which is like a return to office strategy. We have HQ days, which is always Wednesdays and Thursdays, and everybody at the team is cordially invited to come to the headquarters where we always are. I'm 5 days a week there, probably, possibly. But most people come then in Wednesdays and Thursdays, and the rest are working from wherever they want to, from each space, from home, from cafes. We don't really care because we have deadlines they need to meet, we have tasks they need to fulfill. Where they do it, I don't care. When they do it, they should know better than I do, actually.
Good attitude.
I think I have to split them in two groups. There's the group that is our member facing. So our members need to have somebody that they can talk to face and can interact with during the hours we tell them that we're there. So I can't have a receptionist working from home. It's just doesn't work, right? I do get those requests, but it just somehow doesn't work. However, there comes in their career a point as they've been growing and progressing where once somebody gets a magic word of manager in their title, I expect them to manage their productivity and their output. And I'll only measure them on their output. If I have somebody who can do that in 3 days, I want the recipe, and I let them carry on doing that because I'd like to copy that for my own life. but that's where I'm really clear. There's the beginning of your career, and the sort of more junior roles, and the customer-facing roles. You just have to be there to have that human interaction, because that human interaction is your role. But otherwise, I don't check who's coming in when. I just look at, okay, is the work done? Is it to the right standard? And are they really giving me everything, or are they cruising?
Okay.
This is such a polarizing topic. I might be a little old school, but I like being in the office every day. And I agree, you can't have a receptionist do that job, not present. Just like you can't have a facilities person fix things if they're at home. So there's limitations to what that is. But I think also fundamentally, like, we all want people to come back to the office. Like, that's why we do what we do, to provide space. And so I'm a big proponent of kind of getting the team back in the office, but I also don't want a mutiny on our hands, right? So there's kind of walking that tightrope. So we across our sites, we have a few different policies. One is like a minimum of 3 days. We have some flexibility, but to all the people that really fundamentally need their sales, most of the operations, anybody that's running the cafe, like there's obvious core disciplines that have to be present, and so those people are there every day. What I tend to see though is that the less we talk about it, the more the people are there. The more that we make it a subject, the more that people want to think about it and want to stay home, and it becomes a tug of war, and it's like a whole internal community conversation. Versus we set something out at the beginning of the year, we all agree to it, and then, Lord and behold, there's suddenly there's people there 4 or 5 days. They're there all the time, but that's how we've been approaching it. I think this is going to be a moving target for the next few years for all of us. Yeah.
What I would probably add, though, is it's not only this black and white, you're in or you're not, the full day. There is definitely the key thing around flexibility in. I have some people who are really, really fired up with their brains first thing in the morning. They get their best work done. They are working in the sites, but they'll work then those moved hours to the morning. It also really works for them, for some of the, especially in some of our locations, the general manager as a father, he picks up his son at 2. He does awesome work first thing in the morning, but he has teams who then cover in the afternoon, and vice versa. And we have a couple of roles where we have a job share, where people are sharing roles, etc. So these things really work if you put the right parameters and controls around it. But I think the flexibility needs to be more than just, is it 1 day, 3 days, 5 days? There needs to be the nuances around the timings and really work with what works best for you as a person. I have some people who can't really start thinking before 10 a.m. They're still in student world. They just don't do good work before 10 o'clock. So I'm not putting meetings in with them before 10 o'clock. I'm not going to get the best out of them. And I'm not forcing them to do that either, because I think it's important to work, with our own rhythms and be aware of that.
What we see is, as an employer, it's sometimes just good to give freedom. It's like having an open relationship with your partner. You can do it, but do you really? Sometimes. And that's what we see. We give them the freedom to come to the office whenever they want. We have the offer of having these 2 days in a week, and most of the people come, but they also come on the other days. And they could stay home. They always say they wish to be home 1 or 2 days at least, or even 3 days a week, but usually they're there for 4 days. And they have the freedom to do it, but they never do, actually.
Thank you, fantastic words of wisdom. I'm just conscious this is quite a big topic. We've time for any questions. Back there.
Thank you. Hello, Emil from north of Sweden. God morgon, Coworking Space. If you already feel like you have answered this question, just tell me to sit down. I might have something going on with my ears but from flying here. But could I direct the question to Clockwise, is it?
Yeah.
Could you just summon what is your opinion on who embodies the space culture?
On human?
The space culture, who embodies the space culture? And then you're free to pass around if you want. Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question. I think I'm standing on the line here.
Which job role function was like a community manager?
I mean that I was really interested in it because it was in the introduction test. So I was like, I gotta go to this. And so, but let's say, well, for me it is, we're building a community, right?
Yeah.
We're building a culture. Is it like the employers that you speak of, your staff? Or they're gonna be the space culture barriers? Or do you have anything else like?
Look, I think it starts off. It starts off the way, from an accountability perspective. It starts off with me. You know, the buck stops with me. We're a business where we actually don't, do CEOs and all that stuff. So the buck stops with me. So if the culture is wrong, I'll first look in the mirror. And what I'll do is then reflect it by the team. And then our members who are coming into our buildings start utilizing the same culture, because we only have businesses coming into our buildings that want to be part of that same culture. Otherwise, they don't take part in events, and they don't really use all of our amenities and don't connect with the rest of the teams. So they're very quickly then going off and going to a cheaper option, that doesn't need to fund all of these events. We strongly believe that what we're trying to do is create workspaces that are better and actually create better human interactions and actually a better world for us to operate in and to live in. And that's a big vision, but we just keep on working on that piece by piece. So it starts off with me, but the snowball effect into our, thousands of members, our 100 employees, and anyone else that touches us through our suppliers, they're fully aligned with that and so on. So it becomes in itself, movement is too big a word, but it becomes quite a power. It creates a shift.
Oh, okay, we go on. Thank you.
Hi, Johnny Weinbrand from Bespoke in London. It was really interesting hearing your experiences. Thank you so much, because it's clear you genuinely care about your staff and you've invested in these programs, which I think is fundamental. I became acutely aware of the health and well-being of our staff, I think, more in COVID than before, perhaps, because they really were at the front line of what we were delivering as a business. But my question to you is, do any of you measure, I suppose, the success or happiness or well-being of your staff through something like NPS, Net Promoter Score, or any other kind of feedback to actually gauge independently where they sit and how they feel?
Oh, rigorously. Every 6 months, and we're going through it at the moment. So when those results come out on Friday, when they close the polls, I'll be there going straight away into the numbers. My senior leadership team, don't speak to her for an hour because she wants to look through it. She wants to know what the team says. So we rigorously do it every 6 months, and we guarantee that within a month after that, we have the feedback and the numbers back to the team, so they get shared with the team, and a clear action plan gets put into place, how to address some of them. And if we can't address them, I'll be straight up and honest and tell them why we can't address them. So I think there needs to be honest and constructive feedback as well, why you can't do certain things. But yeah, this is, you touched the point there, Johnny. It's a nervous time, I'm always waiting for the results, and mine are out next week.
we basically do the same thing also every 6 months, and we have our KPIs of measuring the happiness of our employees. And what we also do, I mentioned that before, we have this service called Open Up, where people who are mentally stressed, and I don't mean crazy, I mean just like mentally stressed out, can go, and we get KPIs from them as well. We have analytics about unpersonalized data. We don't know any of our employees' problems, you know, in detail, but we know how many people do take consultancy hours at the service, for example. And the higher the number, the worse the situation is, obviously, and the more stress you have in the company, and then you have to do something. And then the other thing is, in these employees' talks that we have regularly, I think there needs to be a certain amount of transparency and privacy at the same time, because these talks are very personal, and it's mostly about development within the company, but also being unhappy with the team or other people at the company, for example. But you should share within the team the information that you can share. Happiness as a number, for example, or like things that everybody mentioned, and then talk about it, and then just go on from there and do the things that you can do.
Can I just add one quick point on that? We're similar with the NPS score from an employee standpoint. I think other thing we do as well is we look at incentives and things that we do for the team. We also look at the utilization of those and whether or not that's a good fit to keep those. So if it's a meditation app or if it's yoga, classes or whatever the case, we kind of really look at saying like, all right, if the team isn't using it, first, why? But is there something better or different that we can offer? So that's kind of a typical approach that we take. I think one of the things that I typically do too is talk to the team like people and not really talk about work all the time, and really understand how they're doing and be empathetic and understanding that like we all come from different places. What do you need as a person? And that's going to help performance in the long run.
Okay, I think we might have to wrap up there, 'cause Alex,
Sure.
you